My name is Nora Bennett, 36 years old, Vice President of Strategy at a tech corporation headquartered in Denver. To my colleagues, I'm the embodiment of decisiveness and strength, the only woman on the executive board who's flipped deals everyone thought were impossible. But to my family, all of that might as well be a clumsy joke. That afternoon, while reviewing numbers for an upcoming shareholder meeting, I received an email from my sister, Allison. The subject line was simple: Reunion 2025, save the date. But I knew I wasn't the intended audience. The email looked like it was sent to everyone, yet the content didn't mention me once. No, Nora, hope you'll make it last year. Or, don't forget the quiche you brought last year. I stared at the screen. This year it was once again the cabin at Lake Arrowhead. Memories flooded in. Pine-scented wood stoves, morning canoe rides, and laughter echoing from the living room. A room I was never around long enough to be part of. I used to love that place like I loved my childhood. Until I learned silence. My mother, Evelyn, was a master at making people feel small without saying a cruel word. She didn't have to raise her voice to make me feel out of place. Just a sideways glance. A clipped sigh followed by, "Oh, Nora's not coming again? So busy with her work she has no time for family." When I was younger, I didn't understand why every summer I was encouraged to stay and help her clean the kitchen while Allison went fishing with Dad and my brother, Zachary, got to steer the brand new canoe. I used to think it was a coincidence. I later learned it was casting. And my role was the responsible child. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend. "Haley, let me guess, another reunion email?" I replied, "Nailed it." Seconds later, my phone rang. Caller ID, Mom. Right on schedule. I picked up. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Nora, darling, about this year's reunion." "No need to explain, Mom," I cut in, keeping my voice neutral. "Let me guess. Too many guests, not enough rooms, or maybe Allison's kids need space. Or Zach is bringing his new girlfriend?" Silence. Then, after a pause, "Well, Allison is going through a delicate time. And Zach just had a breakup. We don't want anyone feeling uncomfortable." "I understand," I replied, my eyes drifting to the merger agreement on my desk. "Of course." I ended the call. No swearing, no tears. I just sat there, gripping the black signing pen next to the financial plan I was presenting to the board the next day. I thought about the awards on my office wall. A master's from Stanford. Top Young Strategist of the Year, from the National Investment Council. A gold watch, personally presented by our CEO. All of it meant nothing in my family's world. To them, success wasn't in data or strategy. It was Allison having 2 well-behaved kids. Or Zach landing a baseball scholarship. Even though he dropped out and now runs an auto shop outside Spokane. I could buy that shop in cash if I wanted. But I never brag. Because I know no matter what I do, in this family, I'll always be the one they just don't quite get. Or, more accurately, never bother to try. I opened the window. Cold wind rushed in, scattering papers off the desk. I stood up, staring toward the horizon where sunset fell across the distant mountain range. Something in me shifted. Not anger. A clarity. Undeniable and steady. It was time to rewrite my role, not for approval, but to make one thing absolutely clear. I was never just a shadow. They'd just never had enough light to see me. I poured another cup of coffee and stood by the window of my penthouse apartment, gazing down at the golden-lit streets of Denver. My mind kept looping back to a familiar scene, the kitchen one summer when I was 12. Allison had gone fishing with Dad and some important business guests. Zach was running around the yard in a brand new sports outfit. And me? I was in the kitchen, standing on a stool, reaching the high shelf to polish the crystal glasses Mom treated like crown jewels. I didn't protest. I even told myself I was being helpful. I still remember asking Mom if I could go down to the beach that afternoon. She didn't look at me, just said, "Someone has to keep the house in order, Nora." Too soft to be a rejection, yet cold enough to close every door. I nodded. I always nodded. In the summers that followed, my role never changed. The one who cooked, the one who cleaned, the one who helped wrap Christmas gifts, while Allison practiced her college speeches and Zach went with Dad to training camp in San Diego. I used to think that if I were good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, one day they'd notice me. But the older I got, the smaller that hope became. And when I walked across the stage with an honors MBA from Stanford, without a single family member in the audience, I knew nothing I achieved would ever be enough for them. Because they never wanted to see me in the first place. The elevator ping snapped me out of my thoughts. Haley walked in, holding 2 Thai takeout boxes and a bottle of my favorite white wine. She stepped across the polished wood floor, nudged aside a stack of documents with her foot, and grinned. "Still torturing yourself over that damn email?" I didn't respond. Haley knew me too well. She set the food down, uncorked the wine, and continued. "Nora, it's time you stop letting them dictate how you feel. Whether they invite you or not doesn't change the fact you're the only successful one in that entire bunch. They just can't see it, because they don't want to." I sank onto the couch, swirling my wine. It's not about being invited. I just want, for once, to feel like part of the family. Haley leaned back, studying me. "Then you need a plan. Not to make them regret it, but to make them unable to ignore you anymore." I gave a dry laugh. "How do I make people acknowledge me when they don't even know what I do?" "Then show them. Every detail, every achievement, every brick you've laid to build the life they pretended didn't exist." I went silent. A plan, not for revenge, but to flip the rules of a game they wrote without me? "So where do we start?" I asked, voice steadier now. Haley raised an eyebrow, reaching into her bag for her iPad. "Now we're talking." "Okay, you said that lake house is in foreclosure, right?" I nodded. "Have you checked the title records? Whose name is it under?" "My dad's. But last year he took out a second mortgage to cover my aunt's medical bills. The interest rate was brutal." Haley smirked. "Then we've got an opening. Someone with your financial standing, plus your real estate knowledge from the Park Ridge project. You could take ownership cleanly and legally." I frowned. "You're telling me to buy my family's house?" "No. I'm telling you to buy the property from the people who pushed you out. You're not stealing anything. You're rescuing a piece of your past." I stared at the iPad as Haley pulled up the public property database. Debt amounts. Foreclosure status. Tax history. It was all there, crystal clear. And then I saw something I didn't expect. The house had missed 3 consecutive payments. If nothing changed, it would be listed for auction within 3 months. I straightened in my seat. "Send me the list of realtors in that area, and a lawyer who specializes in distressed property acquisitions." Haley grinned. "You just switched into full Nora mode. I love it." I didn't smile, but inside me, something ignited. A quiet, burning resolve. 1 week after Haley pitched that wild idea, I sat in a law office on the 42nd floor of a financial building in downtown Denver. On the desk was a thick black folder titled, "Private Property Transfer, Corporate Ownership, Legalization Documents." I had registered a limited liability company, called NB Acquisitions LLC, short for Nora Bennett. My attorney, Catherine Monroe, a woman in her early 50s with neatly pinned silver hair and a voice that never rose above mezzo piano, looked up from the paperwork. "The bank has confirmed they're willing to sell for the outstanding loan balance plus a 5% penalty. If you sign today, we can transfer ownership within 10 business days." and I picked up the fountain pen. Do it. 2 words. 1 signature. And I had officially stepped into a space I had only been allowed to observe from the sidelines for the past 30 years. That same day, I received an email from the executive board. Appointment offer. Chief Executive Officer, Asia Pacific Division, HQ, Singapore and Hong Kong. The subject line made me freeze for a second. Not because I was surprised, but because everything was unfolding so precisely it felt scripted. I immediately called Lance, the company's CEO and the quiet mentor who had backed me for a decade. When he picked up, I got right to the point. Can you confirm the appointment letter isn't a mistake? His laugh came through the line. Nora, nobody accidentally appoints the top growth performer for 3 consecutive quarters to lead our most critical region. Congratulations. I leaned back in my chair. When do I need to be there? 3 weeks. Tokyo Restructuring Summit. You'll be presenting the new integration roadmap to our partners in Japan, Korea, and China. Travel and agenda are all ready with your assistant. I stared out the window. Denver was glowing in the late afternoon sun. Lance. Yeah. If I don't tell my family about this, do you think they'll find out? He paused. Only when you're on the cover of Forbes. And honestly, that's probably when they'll finally believe it. I had my representative contact the bank and proceed with the acquisition exactly as planned. Everything was done through the company. Haley managed the entire renovation of the house, patching the roof, replacing rotted floorboards, installing a modern security system. I didn't sign a single contract under my own name. Every document went through NB Acquisitions, LLC. The lakeside cabin, once the sacred symbol of the Bennett family, was now legally mine. And none of them knew. Not Allison, not Zach, and definitely not my mother. That weekend, I received a text from Allison. Mom's asking if you'll come to this year's reunion. She says things will be different. What do you think? I didn't reply. Not yet anyway. Haley called me just before midnight. The house is ready, lights are reconnected, plumbing's good, and the new kitchen looks incredible. Are you sure you still want to keep it secret? I was stretched out on the sofa, feet propped up, swirling a glass of red wine in one hand. Not yet. They need to see the result before they find out who made it happen. Haley chuckled. You're the most dangerous person I know. Because you do everything beautifully. And legally. I ended the call and reopened the appointment email. In 3 weeks, I'd be standing on a stage in Tokyo in my new role. But first, I was going back to Lake Arrowhead. On the morning of the family reunion, I arrived at Lake Arrowhead at 7 a.m. None of them knew I was back, let alone that I was sitting in the newly renovated kitchen, now covered in cream marble. The same space that used to be my assigned dishwashing station at every past gathering. Now, it had motion sensor LED lights, an automatic espresso machine, and a built-in wine fridge. Every detail was handpicked by me. I wore a long-sleeved navy silk dress, hair pinned high, makeup soft but precise. Not overly formal, but enough to make sure no one mistook me for staff. The house smelled of cinnamon waffles and freshly brewed coffee. A calculated touch. I knew scent could stir memory faster than any word. At 10:24 a.m. my mother's SUV pulled into the driveway. I turned off the music and stepped toward the side window to watch. Allison got out first, carrying a bag of homemade cookies. Zach followed, hauling a case of bottled water. My mother carefully checked her purse, then walked around to the front steps, pulling out the spare key she'd guarded since 1999. I took a sip of coffee, walked slowly toward the front door, and waited. That familiar sound echoed, the key sliding into the lock. Click, click. Another attempt. Then silence. Allison, the key's not turning. Are you sure that's the right one? This is the same key we've used for years, my mother muttered, irritation rising. A hesitant knock followed. I opened the door. The 3 of them froze. My mother's eyes went wide, her hand suspended mid-air. Allison's jaw dropped. Zach instinctively stepped back, like he wasn't sure he was at the right house. "Hi everyone," I smiled. "I'm guessing the old key doesn't work anymore." What's going on?" Allison asked first. "Why are you here?" I stepped aside, gesturing inward. "Come on in. My house is your house." Literally. No one moved. "You coming in, or should I send formal invitations?" My tone was light. They walked in, almost involuntarily. Zach's eyes scanned the living room. Newly polished hardwood floors. Artwork realigned perfectly. Brand new leather chairs, still smelling of fresh upholstery. "What the hell is this?" my mother whispered. "Who redid everything?" "You know who bought the house?" Zach asked Allison. "I thought the bank still had it." I set my coffee down, pulled out my phone and opened a PDF labeled deed_NB_acquisitions. I rotated the screen toward them. My mother squinted. "NB Acquisitions, what is that?" "It's the company I formed 3 months ago. Purpose: to buy this house from the bank. Paid the entire debt, completed a full renovation, transferred ownership, and now," I smiled, "this property legally belongs to Nora Bennett." She grabbed the phone, checking as if I might be joking. Allison took half a step back. Zach collapsed into the armchair. "You're kidding, right?" Allison asked. "I've never been more serious." I moved back toward the kitchen island. "Coffee?" "It's single agony in Colombian. Mom, you've always liked a stronger roast." My mother didn't respond, eyes locked on the documents. Zach looked up. "How did you even, afford all this?" "I worked," I said simply, pouring another cup. "While you all thought I was too busy to show up. I was building something solid enough to own not just a house, but the choice of who gets to walk inside it." Allison set the cookie bag down on the counter. "How long have you been hiding this from us?" "Long enough to know that if I had said anything, none of you would have believed me." My mother sat down on a bar stool, visibly shaken. "You? Really own it?" I nodded. "Everything's done. Legal, taxes, insurance, even the security system's brand new. You didn't notice the lock had changed?" No one spoke for a while. The only sound was the soft tick of the wall clock. I tapped my phone screen. "Oh, and one more thing. I've accepted a new role. Chief Executive Officer, Asia PCP Division. I'll be relocating to Hong Kong soon." Allison blinked. "What?" Zach stammered. "Asia? Like, running an entire region?" "Exactly," I said with a calm smile. "And before I leave, I wanted to come back. To see how the place that once held my childhood memories feels now that it fully belongs to me, and no longer as a shadow to anyone else." My mother slowly pulled her hand from her coffee mug, eyes locked on something she could no longer deny. "And now," I said quietly but firmly, "we can begin again. If you're brave enough to get to know this version of Nora." I pulled open the kitchen drawer and took out a thick folder, placing it on the dining table in front of them. "This is the total cost of the home renovation over the past 4 months." Allison glanced at the first page, where the amount was clearly printed. Total cost: $278,000.46. Zach swallowed hard. "You spent nearly 300 grand to fix up this place?" "Exactly." I nodded, sitting down across from them. "The plumbing was a disaster. The wiring barely passed code. And the roof was so rotted, one more storm could have brought it down. This place wasn't a memory anymore. It was a liability." My mother frowned. "But why? Why you? Why did you do this?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "Because if I left it as it was, all the childhood memories would have rotted with the floors. But if I preserved it, on my terms, at least the memories wouldn't die under someone else's narrative." The room went still. Heavy. Allison stared at her hands. Zach turned away, as if hiding from a version of me he no longer recognized. I continued slowly. I didn't do this for revenge. Not to prove a point. I did it to affirm one thing, that what belongs to me, memories, pain, this house, is worth protecting, just not the old way anymore. My mother stayed quiet, twisting the old wedding ring on her finger, a habit I knew meant she was truly shaken. You've grown more than I ever realized. I didn't respond. That didn't need validation anymore. Allison spoke suddenly. Did you know I had to ask a friend to reprint the 1997 birthday photos? The originals were moldy. I looked at her. I found one of you carrying the cake, smiling at us. After you did everything that day. I never remembered you being there, until I saw that photo. I shrugged. That's why you didn't remember. Because to everyone my presence was never bright enough. But now no one can overlook you. Zach jumped in, still stunned. You're running an entire region. You bought the house without anyone knowing. You've made me rethink everything. I tilted my head. What do you mean? I signed up for an online finance management course. Canceled my last overused credit card? I don't want to keep living like a burden to this family. I was taken aback, not emotional, just surprised that Zach was the one to say it first. Allison looked at me. I turned down a full-time offer from my old firm. They've waited 6 months. I took an unpaid leave and moved to Reno to do legal work for the community for 3 months. I sat up. Seriously? She nodded. I think it's time I do something not just to make Mom proud, but something I can be proud of. I turned to Mom. And you? She blinked. I don't have anything to offer. But I can listen. If you're willing to talk. I leaned back, arms crossed. Good. Then here's the first thing you need to know. From this year forward, family reunions follow my schedule. All 3 of them stared at me. I'll host 1 year in the US, 1 year abroad. Next year is Hong Kong. I'll cover accommodations, if everyone has a passport and the right attitude. Zach nearly choked. Next year? In Asia? Exactly. I want you to see the world beyond your comfort zones. And if you want to stay part of this family, you'll need to learn how to adapt. Allison laughed. You're talking like you're rehiring the entire family. I smirked. I'm just setting new standards. The same ones I was once told I didn't meet will now be the minimum requirements. My mother slowly stood. If that's what you need to heal, I'm willing to follow. I stood too, looking at each of them. This isn't about healing. This is about rebuilding from the ground up. And I won't accept the same old mistakes. No one objected. And for the first time in years, I felt like the Bennett living room truly belonged to me, not because I was in charge, but because they had finally started to follow. The crystal chandeliers sparkled above the grand ballroom on the 5th floor of the Four Seasons in Santa Monica, casting soft reflections on the silver silk draping the dinner tables. A string quartet played gently in the background, flowing through the cool air laced with high-end perfume. I stood near the stage, champagne in hand, watching each of my family members walk in, eyes wide like they'd stepped into a world not meant for them. My mother wore a deep purple silk dress, her hair in a low bun, but her steps faltered as she took in the white leather chairs, the handwritten French menus, the imported silverware. Zach was in a suit, tie askew. Allison whispered something to her husband while scanning the spiral wine tower in the center of the room. I said nothing, just stepped forward, letting the sharp sound of my heels on marble pull their attention. Welcome to our first reunion under the new arrangement, I smiled, raising my glass. Arrangement or Nora's kingdom, Zach half joked, still clearly overwhelmed. Call it whatever you like, I shrugged. But at least in this space, you won't be sitting on plastic chairs eating cold rotisserie chicken while being talked over. Allison pulled out her chair, trying to maintain composure. Did you really organize all of this? Not just organized, I replied, pulling my iPad from my bag and opening the custom event invitation. I funded everything. 2-night accommodations, full dining, private transportation. The events team handling this is from the PR division of the company I run. My mother picked up the menu, eyes pausing at Wagyu beef. Japanese A5, truffle glaze. She set it down with a sigh. Nora, you don't have to put on a show like this. I leaned against the table, head tilted. You think this is about making an impression? Well, what else would it be? A luxury hotel, classical music, tuxedoed staff? No, Mom. My voice stayed low, but firm. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm simply showing you exactly who I am. Not the version this family imagined, but the reality you ignored for over 30 years. She looked around the room, clearly out of defenses. I kept going, my voice level. When I told you I got promoted, you said, as long as you're happy. But when Allison made partner, you popped champagne. When Zach opened his auto shop, you invited all your friends to support him. Me? No one ever asked what company I worked for, what title I held, not even what I did. Allison looked down. Zach sighed. My mother reached for her glass of water without looking up. Well, now everyone sees it, I continued, still calm. The things you once dismissed as exaggerations are now printed in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, and quarterly earnings reports. And suddenly, people care. Mom looked up, eyes red. You're right, I didn't see you clearly. But that doesn't mean I didn't love you. I smiled. Bitter, not cruel. Love is a verb, Mom, not a state of being. And love doesn't survive in neglect. She opened her mouth to speak, then stayed silent. I stood, lifted my glass, and looked each of them in the eye. I don't need your apologies. I don't need anyone's acceptance. But from now on, reunions will happen on my schedule. 1 year in the US, 1 year wherever I'm based. Show up if you can. If not, done. I'm done waiting. What about Christmas dinner? Allison asked quietly. I turned my head, eyes cold as the marble tabletop. It's already booked, Intercontinental Hong Kong. If you have a visa, RSVP by December 10th. Zach gave a short laugh, shaking his head. I've never seen anyone push their family out of their comfort zone by, booking a luxury international dinner. That's how I show love, I said plainly. I force them to evolve, if they want to come along. The music continued. I walked out to the balcony, champagne in hand, sea breeze catching my hair. A hand touched my shoulder. Mother. Nora, she said softly. Is there any chance that someday I could still be part of your life as a real mother? I stared out at the ocean. There's always a chance. But to earn it, you'll have to choose to become someone new. Someone who didn't spend 30 years overlooking her own daughter. She nodded slowly, without resistance. I understand. I turned away. No anger, no forgiveness, but no pain either. Simply this. I was no longer standing behind. And if they wanted to walk with me now, they'd have to learn how to keep up. That afternoon, as the party wound down and sunlight slanted through the windows of the 5th floor at the Four Seasons, my mother walked slowly toward me. I was standing alone near the white floral table, reviewing emails from the legal team in Hong Kong, when she stopped in front of me, holding something small wrapped in ivory velvet. I have something for you, she said softly, eyes avoiding mine. I looked up. What is it? She unfolded the cloth, revealing an old brass key. Its ridges worn, with a bit of white paint still stuck to the handle. The old lake house key. The one you asked to keep when you were 17, but I didn't give it to you. I stared at the tiny object in her hand. The world paused around us. Not because the key held any real utility. It didn't. But because it symbolized something I never had. Trust. I kept it all these years, she continued, voice trembling slightly. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I was afraid. If you walked out that door with this key in hand, I knew I'd never be able to control you again. I closed my hand gently. You never really had control of me. I know, she nodded, finally looking me in the eye. But I used to think that if I never fully acknowledged you, you'd eventually come back. Because you wanted love. I didn't understand. What you needed wasn't permission. I took a deep breath. Do you understand now? I'm trying. She extended the key to me. Not to reclaim the house. It's already yours. But to say, I'm ready to open a different door. If you're still willing to let me in. I held the key in my palm, fingers curling around the cool metal. Familiar but foreign. I said nothing for a long moment. Then I spoke, voice low but steady. If you want to be in my life again, you'll have to walk in on new ground. Not the one that skipped over me during every reunion. Not with the eyes that skimmed over my milestones like they were grocery lists. But with a heart patient enough to listen, to learn, and to accept. She nodded. I'll try. Not because I'm asking for forgiveness, but because I don't want to live one more day inside the silence I helped create. I slipped the key into my pocket and looked back at her. Then you have one chance, just one, and it won't come again. A week later, I stood at the window of LAX, watching the red-tailed jet taxi toward the runway. My bags were checked, my boarding pass had been scanned. The future ahead of me was mapped out like any solid strategy I'd ever built. Exactly the way I always operated. Allison hugged me first. You know, your trip to Hong Kong inspired me to start learning Mandarin. I downloaded the app already. I smiled. I expect to see your certificate when I get back. Zach scratched his head. I'm still stuck on Duolingo level 1. But I signed up for business courses at Santa Clara. This time, I won't drop out. I nodded. Good. My mother came last. She didn't hug me, just placed her hand lightly over mine. I won't apologize for the past. But I'm grateful you're letting me be part of your present. I didn't respond. Just gave her hand a quiet squeeze before stepping through security. In my business class seat, I opened my laptop and reviewed the schedule for my first week in the Hong Kong office. Meetings with the regional HR team, the Southeast Asia expansion launch, and a keynote speech for the International Investor Forum. Next to me sat a small photo Haley had secretly slipped into my suitcase. A picture of me standing in front of the lake house, sunlight glowing against my hair. Below it, she'd handwritten, "No one starts over alone. But only the brave choose to begin again." I leaned back as the plane began to roll. Behind me was a house that once marked the end of my childhood. Ahead was a place I could finally write the next chapter, without asking anyone's permission. A second chance doesn't come from being forgiven. It begins the moment you're strong enough to stop needing permission to be yourself. Nora's story is powerful proof that success isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your worth after years of being overlooked. In real life, many people have felt abandoned, dismissed, or treated as the outsider in their own families. But like Nora, when you stand up, take control, and set clear boundaries, you don't just earn back respect. You create a second chance. Not for the past, but for the future you choose to build. What are your thoughts on Nora's journey and the decisions she made? Share your reflections in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional, thought-provoking stories about life and family.